It is on Mondays. Every couple of Mondays that we welcome in this lady. She's so cool to take her activism and her orientation and understanding of animal issues and bring them to us. She's Karen Dawn, everybody, and she's standing by. I think she's back and forth between, I don't know, you're Texas, you're in California. You move around. But it's great to have you here.
Texas today, mate. Yeah,
Texas today.
Around.
Love it.
Yeah.
You can all go to hell.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Right on, baby. Right on. So, Karen, in all of this troubled world that we find ourselves, you focus on animals, and they have had a pretty bad deal for a long time.
And I'm listening to your thoughtful take on what's going on in Gaza and Israel and to the Palestinian people and the Jew hating. And I'm just wondering, with the way humans treat each other, how are we going to get them to care about what happens to animals? It's just, Mark, it's hard.
It's interesting, you say that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and then I promise I won't interrupt again. But it's interesting because when I see things like major world events like floods or fire, I see certain people in the midst of flood and fire, both of which I've been victimized by, and they run to try to get the animals out, to protect the animals too. They're people who are, like yourself, who feel responsible because they know that in the fleeing, usually the animals are left behind. The horses are left tied up. The pigs are left locked in the pens as the floodwaters rise. And oftentimes there are those who, try to make a difference in those creatures' lives. Sadly, when I look at Gaza, I think, well, everybody's running and, there's going to be carnage, and it's going to be four-legged and two-legged.
Mark, you are one of the least interrupting men I've ever known, and your interruptions are always so thoughtful, and I love having a conversation with you about all of this. So don't say you'll never do it again. You have to do it sometimes. And it's funny, I just said, how are we going to get people to care about animals with they don't even care about each other? And then you mentioned what you just mentioned, and this is the odd juxtaposition that it's so true that, people do care about animals much more than the government would, than our laws would suggest that we do. For example, whenever there's any sort of emergency, and I'm thinking about the Hurricane Katrina floods and then all the disasters that have happened since then, when people are fleeing their homes, they don't take their television, they don't even take their photo albums, they take their animals. So we do understand that they are part of our lives, that we care about them deeply. And then you have these crazy situations. In fact, we had one leaving Israel recently where the American government was not allowing people fleeing Israel to take their animals with them on the plane, as if their lives haven't already been horrendously turned upside down. These are people who've lost relatives in those attacks on October 8th, and they're fleeing, and some of them are coming back to America. And then the government says, well, yeah, but, humans first. You can't take, your children haven't had enough trauma, having lost their aunts or uncles or whatever. We're going to take their dogs and cats away from them too, because, somebody on the plane might not appreciate having a dog there. And I'm just like, there's the laws, and the people who make them are out of touch with how people do view animals. But
that's a great point, that people grab their animals first. It's so funny. It's always what they tell you. Well, grab your animal. They even say it, grab your animals, and then your prescription medications, when you're evacuating, whatever. But you're right. I never even considered the fact that clearly reflects
grab your animals if you're allowed to.
If you're allowed to. Right, exactly.
Right. And it's funny, I remember after Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people got killed and didn't leave their homes because the Red Cross shelters at those times were not allowing animals in. And I had a lot of friends down there in the days after Hurricane Katrina rescuing animals, and I was writing, as I do, and I had a piece in the Washington Post at that time talking about the way that this policy of the Red Cross not to allow you to take your animals, how it affected humans and how it even killed humans. And it killed specifically lower income humans, because if you were rich, you fled and you went to the local dog-friendly Marriott. But if you were relying on the Red Cross shelters, you couldn't leave unless you were willing to leave your animals, which an awful lot of people aren't. So I'm not talking about vegan people. I'm just talking about people who view their dogs and cats as beloved family members, which many, many, many people in America do.
Oh, of course. So, yeah. I mean, it's a connection that we feel, and it's powerful. I was talking to my partner on the radio in Los Angeles, Tim Conway Jr. He said when his cat died, he cried more than when his mother died. And he said that on the radio.
I'm hoping he wasn't sleeping with his mother for the last 20 years.
No, you're right. You're saying that bond is created over that time by sleeping in the same bed with your animal, etc. But it was just an interesting
of course
comment from a guy who's not, he's not vegan and he's not like an animal. He was speaking to the connection. It's a real connection.
After Buster Dawn, who was the love of my life, died, I had a piece in the local Palisades paper, and I dared to say that I had never felt more bonded to another being than I had to Buster. Because sure, I had family members, but I wasn't sleeping with them every day and every night. And I actually had, because there was a photo of me and Buster in the paper together, I had strangers coming up to me on the street and hugging me because I dared to say that out loud, because they had felt it, but felt you're not allowed to say it. And I'm loving this conversation, but I want to get on to something going on in the news, which I know is my job here, is to talk about animal news to some extent. Last week, you and I spoke about the possibility of a court case coming up that would possibly grant elephants rights. And we had noted, as was noted in the paper, that one of the reasons that they had singled elephants is that elephants had been proven to have a sense of self, that they recognize themselves in the mirror. Well, this week, The Guardian has published that, and it's funny, again, science takes a while to catch up to things that some of us already know. And those of us who have had pet birds know that this is not a surprise. But The Guardian came out with an article this week that showed that chickens are apparently well aware that another chicken, that the chicken in the mirror is not another chicken. So it's the same idea of a sense of self. I don't know, Albert, if you have that article from The Guardian I sent over. If not,
no, that's not it.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not fair to Albert. I tell him we're going to go with one thing, and then I just assume
you pulled a bait and switch on Albert. That's not.
I do it all the time.
I'm the only one allowed to do that.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah.
But Albert, you know what? I'll tell them about the chicken story, and we'll have that video shortly, if we may. But so The Guardian came out with a piece saying that here it is, that chickens have a sense of self, and that they know that they can recognize themselves in the mirror and know that it is not a different bird who is in the mirror. The way that they know this is that when there's a hawk going overhead, chickens will alert each other with a call. And I know this from my days of rescuing turkeys, which sometime in November we will most definitely talk about. And when an airplane goes overhead, the turkeys will make that very, very specific hawk, hawk, hawk call to each other. And what I didn't know is that if they are alone, if there's no other turkey or chicken around, they won't make it, because that's just basically alerting the hawk, saying, here I am, whereas there's nobody else to warn. And if roosters have a big mirror next to them, and so they're seeing what we might think they would see as another rooster or chicken, they will not make that sound. They're apparently quite well aware that it is not a different chicken or rooster, and that reason, that exactly as we work out eventually, that the reason that the other bird is doing exactly what they are doing is because, it's me in the mirror. So they've done various tests to figure that out. reason I think this is so important to discuss is we're talking about, the need to give elephants rights because they're so intelligent and they recognize themselves in the mirror. We are going to get to the point, Mark, where we realize that this is the case for all animals. And the reason that dogs don't recognize themselves in the mirror is because they have such darn bad eyesight. I'm so sure of it. And that if we were testing them according to smell rather than according to vision, we'd find out that they too have a sense of smell. And the reason
you're the activist, but I would just I would say this. I hate that I have to justify kindness by saying, well, that's an intelligent creature and it knows itself and they're just super well-developed evolutionary years have led to their intellect, etc. I don't care how smart it is. I don't care if that dog is smart. I don't care if the fish is smart. I don't care if the chicken is smart. I care that it feels fear. It feels pain. And for that reason, I think there should be kindness directed toward that thing. So I didn't interrupt.
Bless you for that.
But really,
and
that's
you know what?
And
Anybody agrees with you. You don't have to be vegan to agree with you on that. That beings who feel matter. So the reason
we have only a minute or two. Do we have? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush you. Go ahead.
If we can have a few minutes, I wanted to play something that Albert started to put up before, about a minute of a man, and he's not talking about animals. He's talking about the Gaza-Israel situation, but I just wanted to share it and talk briefly about my reaction as an animal activist, if we can spare a few minutes.
Sure, of course. Albert, have you got it? Ready?
Albert, thank you.
Okay, good. Here we go.
As I said before, is complex and changing quickly. But I promise you, World Central Kitchen will do everything we can to help people, innocent people, who they need our support, food, now, immediately. Thank you for your support. And let's all believe that by building longer tables, no higher walls, by understanding that we all need to respect each other, even if you think different, by understanding that we all need to support each other, even if people don't look or don't have your same religion. At the end, is the only way forward. Longer tables is the way. I know you believe in World Central Kitchen because World Central Kitchen believes that longer tables will be the only way forward.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. So, Mark, the reason I wanted to share that is that comes across my feed this morning, and I'm so touched by this charity who are intent on feeding the folks in Israel who've lost their restaurants and their way to make a living, and the folks in Gaza who are being cleared out. And his whole talk, it's about 3 minutes long.
That's Jose Andres.
Yes, thank you. And such a beautiful charity and such beautiful ideas. But of course, as an animal activist, I'm watching this and I'm loving one of the basic tenets, which is who cares where you are. If you're a starving child, we're going to try and feed you. And then I'm like, who are we feeding them? And I don't expect everybody to feel this way. And again, it's not, you must be vegan, because one of the main reasons I don't yell at people to be vegan is because it doesn't work. And that another time I want us to have a talk about cultured meat, because I suspect that is the way forward, because people aren't all going to go vegan. But I get so concerned that a beautiful man like this, who is so intent on feeding people on both sides, will still somehow be able to close his heart to the animals. And I'm not talking about the fact that he's feeding people animals. I'm talking about the way we treat these animals. And I shared with Albert a couple of photos of factory farming. And it isn't that we're eating other creatures. It's the way humanity chooses to treat them. It's unconscionable. We give them lives that are not worth living. And in order to do that, we have to close our hearts to their suffering. And then how can we be, because we know that they suffer, what we were talking about at the beginning here, just that we have family. These are the turkeys, and I'm going to talk to you another time about turkeys and how much they love to cuddle and hang out where the action is. And these are the guys being bred for Thanksgiving, and these are the lives that they are being given, and lives worse than death. And in order to do that, we have to close our hearts to the suffering of animals who we know suffer the way that we know that our cats and dogs suffer. And then how can we be surprised, given that we do that 3 times a day when we sit down for a meal, or that somebody as kind as the people in charge of these charities are feeding animals without looking to see where they come from? How can we be surprised then that people who we would think would be kind can be making excuses for killing children, whether it be Palestinian children or teenagers in the Gaza Strip, because, well, they're not exactly like us. And so this is, when I share that and I share that video, it's just a call for people to open up their hearts to all who are different, whether it be people from different nations, or I would call them people from different species. And to the extent that we have those relationships with our dogs and our cats and our birds, we know that they are more or less people from different species. They're not.
Yeah, it's a species. It's a speciesism that happens. I mean, to throw another ism at it, but it really is. We're out of time. I think that's a great point, and it's one that I hadn't considered. Jose Andres is sort of this celebrated guy, as you say. He doesn't pick
Beautiful.
sides. He feeds everybody. But you're right. The price of that food is overlooking anyway. I mean, at least acknowledge the horror that goes into that food, is your point.
And we could do better.
Yeah. The Daily Animal World News Watch, DawnWatch, is Karen Dawn. We give you a little dose of it, something to think about. You don't have to change your ways, but it's something to think about. We got a lot of reaction. And I was trying to find you a couple of comments, but
I'm super interested in people's take, and maybe
we have
next week
2
we can
chickens
talk
for eggs.
about
They are
that.
friendly, but not on the level of our dogs. But they know us. We let them out. They come up to us for attention, etc., and we treat them well. Chickens are beautiful, says Doug. Oh, you got a little more love, Karen, than I thought. I thought you were going to get I thought you were going to get a tough time from my audience. But Judy says the only thing that attracts me to vegan food is that I know it's dairy-free. I'm lactose intolerant, but I've got no qualms about eating meat. So you see, it's the full range here on our program.
And you know what? I love that. I'm not trying to tell anybody to feel differently, but trying to get people to make choices that are in line with their own values.
Right. I've had some great rescue dogs in my life, Russ says. I think they actually rescued me. Isn't that, yeah. And finally, Doug says, Mark, your guest looks great in purple. I hope that's not an inappropriate comment. So there you go, Karen.
How dare somebody pay me a compliment?
Finish with the compliment. Karen, thank you. And I look forward to your next visit. You can, again, find Karen Dawn. Google her. She's on Facebook with a very lively Facebook page. DawnWatch is the name of it. And we appreciate you so much. Karen Dawn, everybody. Bye, Karen.
Yes, I'm good.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.